Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Chris from Synced Stories, and we're going to talk about intersections one more. So this is part 3 of gutter intersections, and we have a lot to talk about because when I revisited part 1 and part 2, I found many things that could be explained better, and many things that I didn't say, and then I also made an error in part 2 in my presentation. So I would like to clarify these things here in part 3 and make a better visual representation of what I'm proposing here for us all to think about. Even if you don't adopt this philosophy, even if you don't like it, you may still appreciate the time and effort I've put into this to try to elaborate the sort of at least my understanding of how this works and what looks good and what doesn't look good, because ultimately it's about aesthetics, and that is personal. So some people, although we may share many things, but ultimately it's a perception thing from each individual person's point of view. And so we'll start in the usual way with just pointing out here that this is a promotion for my upcoming 987 degrees centigrade, the science fiction action thriller, and it's part of the Unlimited Danger series that I'm having. So this is season 1 of Unlimited Danger, and we have also a back cover here coming up, and we have the 8 volumes, 8 comic books, 8 comic book albums, not just like small Marvel comics, sort of 20 pages, not like that, but this is a US letter production, and it's 40 pages, full color, and with a very good story. So I put in a lot of effort to sort of mesh together both a good story and good drawings and a good layout and good hand lettering and good this and that. So I'm hoping that you will appreciate this. Alright, so let's continue with the topic of today's video, and that is the elaboration of the gutter intersection philosophy here. Or there is a little philosophy, but ultimately it's about practical usage. What should I do? So the question is, I'm restating the question. You can have 2 questions, but ultimately it's about what is the absolutely best design of the gutter intersection. So what we are concerned about is this here. So I'm using the marquee now tool to just sort of outline this intersection here. What is this an acceptable one, or is it a good one, or is it a very good one, or is it an excellent one, or what is it? So this is the sort of, and the same goes for this one over here. Is this a good one, or is it a bad one, or is it a very bad one, or is it an excellent one, or acceptable one, or what is it? How can we measure it? Okay, so that is the question. And in part 2 of this video, we used row 3 and row 4 to talk about these things. And we can perhaps just do a quick recap of what I said in part 3 here. And we were talking about, I used this, the red and the blue there, but let's take them away for now and just so the sort of summing up of my philosophy here is that it's good to start with this simple design here. So if we and I've named this design as a straight intersection, and it's straight because not because of this row here or this gutter here. This is a straight gutter, of course, going horizontally across the page here, but in my design and in most other classic designs, there is always a horizontal gutter, so it's not like nowadays when they are more liberal. So this is not the question, so this is not in question for this video at all, basically. I have a small point later on, but basically this is always horizontal, so we're not changing that. What is straight, when I'm subclassing something as or I'm naming something here as straight, it is this intersection here. So because it could be, now let's see, we are on number 3 and 4, right? So it could be like this, for instance. Then it's not a straight one. Or it could be like this. It's not a straight one, but this is a straight one. So this is sort of the starting point from in this discussion. And my idea here then is that we have a number of probably something like 5 levels of different acceptance levels. I said in the previous videos, I said 4 levels, but probably we have 5 levels. It depends on how you count and all that, but I'll be getting to that. So what I'm saying here is that this straight crossing here is a good one. It's an okay one. It's something that is fully acceptable, and it's all right to use. It's not the super best, but it's good. It's adequate. It's you're not going to suffer in the long run from showing or from using such a design. Now, what I'm also, but this is under one condition. You can, so my idea here is that you can only do this if you, this thing can only be good, considered good, if all the other intersections in the same sort of in between the same rows So if this is row C and this is row D, the premise is that all the intersections must be straight. So you can only have a straight intersection if all the others also are straight. But in this case here, I'm showing you they are not. This one is off a little bit here. It doesn't look, it looks very, very bad. And this one is better, but it's not, perhaps not adequate anyway. I'll get back to that later, these things. So the demand, what I'm demanding is that you can have this only if all the others are the same. And if you, like Jack Kirby did in the 60s with Fantastic Four, he had this sort of like almost like a standard design he did on his pages, that he had just 2 panels on the row, and then he used just and then equal sized panels even, and then just position them exactly like this with a straight gutter in between. So he had either 3 rows on the comic book page like that, or he had 2 rows like that with one panel having being just one panel on one row, so there was no gutter at all. So then, and then he used this long horizontal panel either above the two other rows, or he could sometimes use this like a 2 panels, 1 panel, 2 panels construction, so that there wasn't any actual straight gutter going across the page, because there was a one panel row in between. Anyway, so that's just one of his. But the striking point is that he actually used these horizontal gutters with a horizontal intercrossing. All right, so that's so straight gutters there, and so this situation here. Oh, well, we have to imagine that it goes out here. So this situation is not acceptable, and even if you could make this one. Oh, here we have a straight gutter intersection. Okay, that's good, but then we have moved it, so it's now this one is off, and this one is closer to, these two are closer, and so then you have to in order to fix this, you would have to make this panel less wide here, and then you have to make this panel 4 on row D, you have to make this wider, so as to move the gutter. So all gutters has to be adjusted, and then it gets good, but it doesn't get very good anyway. So I mean, as it is right now, it's bad. This is my a layout like this is bad because it looks like it's whimsical. So either you have all of the gutter intersections straight down like that, like this in the middle here, or you have to have all of them offset, like for instance like this, or something like that. So this is my rule then. So either a straight crossing for all of these three intersections, or you have to have all three with like a curved or a bent here, all of them like that. So for instance, as my own design is, I'm just moving it as it really is. So this would be a perfectly acceptable one, because I have these, how should I put them, this sort of bent, and the gutter intersection is sort of offset far enough for us to that it becomes nice. And I'm going to return to that. So what I'm saying now here is that this design, which I show you right now here, this design of the gutter intersections is the only design that can be regarded as very good in terms of aesthetics. So if you start involving like straight gutter intersections, if you start implementing that, then it doesn't matter, it cannot be any better than just good. So it doesn't get really good. It's just, but it's okay. So you can have it like that if you want it, but it the real sort of finesse, or the real goodness sort of comes to bloom only when you start combining them like this, in my point of view here. So now I want to talk about why that is. Why is it that this sort of offset panels construction or layout or design, why is it better than the non aesthetically, or the non version? So why is this how should I say, offset layout better than the straight gutter intersection layout? And the reason why that is, according to me, is as follows. To explain that, I'm going to let's just do this. Let's just copy row D here. Like that, and we hide that one. And then I'm going to just drag the copy here of row D up, so we create a something like this, just to show you what I mean. So if I now zoom out, let's say I zoom out on the whole page, and I add a white top here where I can scribble things. I'm going to try to explain now why let's see if I can get clean enough here in my... Okay, so let's zoom in here. So the reason why straight gutter intersections are bad is simply this, that because the premise was that you have to have all of them. If you're looking at two rows, one the upper one and one is lower. Let's zoom in one more step. So we only see these two rows, right? So for every pair of rows like this, wherever we scroll and wherever we want to have a straight gutter, we always have to have all of them. So on these two rows, if you want to have the first one straight, this isn't straight right now, but if we were to have them like that, then we would have had to have all the other ones as well. So it's sort of, and if you want to have all of these straight here, then of course, how should you do here? Should you have these straight also? And then the more of that you do, the more you create rectangles within rectangles. So this is the issue then. We already have one. Let me use a color here. Let's see, some interesting color here. Let's take green. Let's take green here. Okay. So what I'm saying is that this is the comics books page, right? The comic book page, and we have this sort of outline of all the rows on the page, right? So this is a rectangle. Okay, so then we have one rectangle there. But then all the panels are rectangles too, right? So each panel is sort of like its own rectangle. So let's use this perhaps. So we'll take this as an example. Oh, well, let's not take that. We can take this one. It doesn't. So, and we can do this for all the panels. But then, of course, we also have this panel here. Which forms is a rectangle, right? So I think that's hard to say anything about, other than yes, sir. and this situation that you have two juxtaposed or two neighboring panels, of course, creates the idea or sort of implies or sort of results in this other thing that we actually have one more rectangle created by the two neighboring ones. So it's sort of so the squareness, we have lots of squareness, and so we have squareness in the big dimension here, so to speak, and then we have squareness on the panel level, and then we have a squareness on the row level, within the row level. So we have another on the whole row here. The whole row creates also a rectangle by combining these, sort of. I'm not drawing everything perfectly now, but the idea here is that so we already have enough of rectangles. There's no what do you call dearth of rectangles. There's no lack of that. Instead, we have a lot of it, which is why, of course, some comic book artists use sort of diagonal panels sometimes to spice it up and like that. So we understand. It's perhaps not for this reason, but so we at least we have some understanding that we want to sort of make things a little more irregular, or at least more non-rectanglish, if I can say. Okay, so okay, so now back to the straight gutter intersections. So what I'm saying now is that if you have straight gutter intersections, like in the case here with row C and D here now with these identical rows, but so we have three perfectly straight gutter intersections, and but the minus points here, if I can, the reason why this construction here doesn't really come up to the perfect level, it doesn't become very good, it just becomes at the most good. And the reason for this is because this arrangement creates let's see where we have my brush. There it is. Did I make it too small? Okay, here we go. Maybe another color also. The reason why this doesn't really pan out perfectly is because these gutter intersections now create rectangles this way to add to the number of rectangles on the already on the page. So this is why we're getting minus points, or not reaching up to the topmost scale. This is the reason why straight intersections only are good and not very good. Because on these other, if we take up here, so it becomes too much rectangles. And if we compare with up here on these two rows, for instance, we can see that none of these combinations here, since we have an offset of the gutter here far enough, it doesn't create a rectangle. So this panel and this panel, we cannot make a rectangle of it, and therefore it feels more like fluid. It feels more like it's planned to sort of melt in each other. It's sort of it feels like it's a designed puzzle meant to be put together in exact fitting form, without becoming boring, without becoming creating this rectangular sort of predictable pattern. So this is why I'm proposing that that in order to reach the topmost level in terms of perfecting the gutter intersections, we have to move away from the intersection of these, so we cannot really have straight gutter intersections, but we must move away a decent amount from the crossing. We must, let's see, we can grab this row D again here. So we must move away and not, whoops, and not have this straight layout. So we must end up with something like this, where we have them offset some amount. So whether this is perfect, we can talk about in a second. Okay, so that's one point then. So now I'm just quickly going to replicate what I did in, just to show you what my mistake here. I'm replicating the let's see, I had 2 slides that were wrong, and these are the ones. So I showed you this slide here where I said that the good ones, in order to be good, a straight intersection has to be accompanied on the same row with all the other straight ones also as well. So they all have to be straight, and then only then it becomes good. But what I had in number in the previous video I posted yesterday was that I had a number here said 1.0 gutter widths, and that is wrong. So the offset is 0 gutter width, and we will see this later on why that is so, or so we can see. But and I did the same thing here. In this slide, which pertain to the, if you have one straight gutter intersection but some others that are not straight, then it becomes bad, like up here, right? So bad, it becomes a bad design. So having this this is an even worse idea, to have one intersection straight and the all the others on the same row not straight. So that point is the same, but here once more I had the figure 1.0 gutter width there, which was wrong. So it should be 0 gutter width. It should be, it's a not, it's a 0, it's nothing else. Okay, so that's the correction then. And these of course are 2 of the 4 levels of quality I was assigning in the last 2 videos. Now let's see what we should talk about here in my script. Right, so now we should go to the idea here, or the how to illustrate this as good as possible. And I tried illustrating this before by using you may have remembered I used these. We zoom in on the crossing here. I used this illustration before, that we have, if we are going to move something to the right, then we must use the red line as the reference. So if I'm going to the top row here, or the one above row, is always considered stationary. So when we're talking about moving a gutter, we're always thinking about that in regard to the lower row down here. So if we're going to move it to the right, then it's always this one, lower one. Whether this is the second row on the page or the third row on the fourth, so we everything is relative to the row just above it. So that's why I'm talking like this. Okay, now I'm moving everything. Why do you do that? Why? Let's zoom out. Where am I? Okay, so I have the layers on my other monitor here, so I'm a little unusual construction. Let's see. Alright, so we have to have the move tool. That's why, I guess. We can move it separately. Yes, okay, let's see. So we now zoom in again here. And of course we should remove the green one. We don't need that now. Yes, okay, so let's center this now. So what I'm saying is now that what we learned in the previous videos was that I created a red reference line for showing us what we should do if we're moving. So if our starting point is this, so this has been the premise in the other videos as well. So if we consider starting with a straight gutter, how should we improve it? And I'm saying the whole sort of takeaway, or the summary of my philosophy here is that you have to move it far away from the gutter intersection. And what far away means is 2.5 gutter widths. So up here we have one gutter width up here, and it's by using this as a reference point. So I have to count here. I have to, so starting from the 0, from the this red line here, I go 1 gutter width, 2 gutter width, 2.5 gutter width. So that's what I'm saying. I'm also saying this, that in the other case, if our objective is to move, to try to optimize the layout by moving to the left, then we move 2.5 gutter widths to the left here instead, by using this other reference point, which is blue. But here, of course, is a thing that one could sort of how should I say this? You could do a mistake. because we have two borders, right? So the question is, which one am I ending up with? Should I take this? Should I move it here? Is it this border I should do the 2.5 gutter width with? Or is it this border I should do 2.5 gutter width with? How are you thinking? Chris, how are you? Which one is it? How is that? How can I remember this rule? So I was thinking about this today to try to make this a nice to make this example better. So I'm doing this now. I'm revising this my drawing here, and so let's do the first for the red one. So what I will be doing is that I'm having this. I'm going to move this up first, like that, a little, just for the design, and then I'm going to erase here. Whoops. Going to erase. Like that. And then I'm going to continue painting a little more here. Hopefully, if I can get my brush working. Something like that. If it's maybe a little much, but let's do one less. Like that. So I'm painting this in the same color as this one here. And this one is already painted, so this is already red. But we can fill it in a little bit. Oops. All right. So hopefully now, if this works. No, okay. I cannot. I'm painting everything on one layer now, so okay, that's okay. I'm just quickly erasing this, and I'll paint, because I have to paint this red line on the row itself, not on a separate, so I have to sort of destroy my panel, so I have to actually choose another layer. I have to go down to the actual row, to the movable row I have here, and now I have to paint on that. That's the algorithm. Just to be able to show you what I'm the sort of the gotcha that sort of struck me today. Okay, so all right, so we have now red selected, and I'm now doing it right on this. Okay, and we can do the same here actually, but it doesn't matter because the row C up here is static anyway. So all right, so I'm now selecting row D, and I'm V tool here or the move tool, and when I move it, the red is sort of coming with, right? So this makes it much easier. So if I want to move the lower panel to the right, or the gutter, if I want to, or how should I say, or the border, if I want to move it to the right, then I'm using the red references. So not only am I using the red up here in that panel, but also the red one here. So these are aligned. So by thinking that everything red hangs together, so I'm going to the right, I'm using the red. Right starts with r, right? Right and red. So red is right. Okay. So then it becomes easy. So then it has nothing to do with this. So I now know that it's to here I'm going to do it, not to here. All right. So similarly, we can do the same thing for the other side. And then we can perhaps just hide this for now. And we remove, let's see, I have to be on that layer up there, and then I'm removing this one here, and I'm sort of, so the blue goes there. We take the temperature there, and we go back down to the movable row D, and then we repeat the same thing down here with the blue instead. So now we have the blue there. And perhaps we should fill in a little bit up here also as well, so we don't miss it. Okay, so now when we're moving to the left, we are using only the blue line. So there's no, so this is the objective now, to move our blue borders. Well, we're only moving one border, right? But we're syncing the blue lines now. Moving to the left, we sync the blue lines. Maybe we should have had lavender as the, if that is a color. Anyway, so I think that's a good invention. It's usable. It's so now should be less confusion about which edge or which side we should sort of find our way to, and we have an exact sort of figure, 2.5 gutter widths, that so we only have one choice. basically, or one main choice, and that is that if we want to go to the right, we use the red lines, and move it there too. And if we're going to the left, we use the blue line and we go there too. At least. So what I'm also saying is that we have to sort of reach this point of 2.5 gutter width to be safe. So 2.5 gutter width is sort of like a safe intersection here, a safe passage or safe pathway, or however you want to speak of it. And but 3.0 is also good, or is also very good, and 4.0 is also very good, etc. So but we have to reach this level, and anything else, including the straight gutterings, is not as good in terms of the impact on the page of the whole design. Okay, let me see here what we have, what other points we can do. Also, we can talk about the sliding scale here, and because previously I've been talking about these intermediary values here, like if we start with a straight intersection here, where we clearly see that whether you measure it from the red line as a reference point or the blue lines, the offset is 0 always. So these are equal. The blue lines are perfectly lined, and the red lines are perfectly lined in the sort of horizontal. There's no horizontal offset, or there shouldn't be. Well, you get my point here. So what I've previously been saying is that if you move, for instance, to if we move left and use the blue lines here as the measurement, then we will see here that there's a half a gutter width here, 0.5 approximately here now. And previously I've said that this is very bad, and I've also said that this is very bad, and 0.8 or 1.0 and 1.5 and 2.0, and so but it actually, I think, after some more thinking, I think we have to modify this a little bit. So my new sort of scale is that everything below 1.5 gutter widths, whether that is 1.5 to the right like this, or whether it's 1.5 to the left like this, this sort of interval, all of these values, all these offsets in between sort of minus 1.5 to plus 1.5, except for the perfect intersection, 0 offset. All of these are very bad, I've previously said. And I still say that these are very bad. But the difference I'm saying now is that once we have sort of reached the level of 1.5 here, once we have reached, let's say we do this on the right, we go to the right here and we reach 1.5, is approximately there or something. Once we go here, then suddenly it's not totally very bad. So now it's something like not so bad, or only bad, or perhaps it's acceptable even, or something like that. And then we move a little closer here, we okay, so now it's even better, so now perhaps it's good or something. And now when we reach 2.5, it's really good, because now we are at the safe distance from the intersection. But my point is that it's sort of like a gradual, I think. I think that's more, it's a more gradual thing once we have sort of come over at least half a gutter width or something like that. So, but I think we have to at least come to this, if not maybe a whole gutter width, to sort of, and then we can experience gradual increase. But I still think that that everyone wants to reach the top level anyway. So why mess around with like 1.5 gutter widths or 2 gutter widths if we can have 2.5? So I think 2.5, or even 3 or 4 or 5. I mean, that's even better. So anyway, so this is just a point. The point was that it's a gradual thing. Once you sort of get over the hump or the bump or whatever they say. Right, so that was this point. So let's see, 5. Let's see, I have. Another point here is that and I think another point which is related to my new coloring here of these borders on the lower panels is that it's not really about from an aesthetic point, it's not really about the 2.5 gutter widths. This is the 2.5 gutter widths is simply a measurement, right? So aesthetically pleasing, I mean, from an aesthetic perspective, from a design or beauty perspective or something about that, it's not, the issue is not whether it's not about the red, because if we're moving from the red point here, the reference sort of level where we are measuring our 2.5 from, it's not that point which we are looking at from an aesthetic point. It's just that it happens to be 2.5 gutter widths what we're ending up with. The real issue here, when we're moving to the right, is that the distance, it's the distance from the blue line here that we're concerned with. This distance has to be bigger than the gutter width. That is my point. So of course you could have measured, you could have used this as a reference point as well, but then you couldn't have it been complicated to address or measure the straight intersection, because then you would have to move it back. If you use this as a 0 point, then the straight intersection would be -1 gutter width, and sort of it's more natural, I think, to have a straight intersection to be measured as 0 gutter widths. That was my point. So from an aesthetic point of view, what we are looking at is only this, just to make it really clear. What we're looking at is only this. Assuming that we know how big the gutter is, it's equal to this distance here. So we're only concerned with the distance from this one to here. So this must be big enough for us to create a nice puzzle. So what we want is actually, another analogy I was thinking about is that what we want to do is to be bricklayers, right? It's bricklaying that it has to do with. We have to get our bricks in a row, so to speak. We have to get our ducks in a row in the right way. And so what the bricklayers are doing, of course, is to, now I'm moving everything here because, okay, so what the bricklayers are doing is, of course, this, that they are centering, they are sort of offsetting their border intersections a maximum, so to speak. So this gutter here goes up to the exact middle of the brick, and this one also, and on like that. So because they have equal bricks, right? So they have the width of an ordinary brick. When the mason sort of puts the bricks in that particular pattern, all the bricks are the same size normally. So if one intersection comes here, then it's always centered along the width of the panel above. But in comics we want to be more refined than that. Of course it's super stable and super robust, laying bricks like that, but it's also boring, right? So what we want is to have variety within our sort of within a organized arrangement. We want robustness, but we also want variety, and the variety comes by having different widths, and the variety also comes by different placements of the gutters. So even if you have you may have, perhaps, like in this case, two almost equal width here on the upper row, but in the lower row you have one which is not so wide and another one which is more wide, and so it creates, so you get different offsets and like that. And of course you want that because you have different figures and different you may have one wide shot and then you may have one extreme close-up, and then you may have one in between somewhere, or so of course you are allowed to have different widths. That's one thing that makes the total layout more interesting and more like that. But still, you have to be careful about the gutter intersections. So in one sense, you really have to be a bricklayer. You have to realize that the seams or the in betweens, how should I say, the white here is the cement, right, or the equivalent, and you don't want to just stack. You don't want to stack the bricks like this if you can avoid it. So that's even if I've sort of labeled it good, I don't do it myself anywhere because I don't think it. I think it's okay, but sort of. I want the real thing, so to speak. All right, so that's one more. Another observation I made in the afternoon here is that theoretically speaking, we could have this idea. We could use this idea even in the sort of top-down arrangement. So let's say we want to modify something here to also invoke the vertical direction. So we could do something like this, but this requires, I think, this could be one way to sort of, if you want to have a horizontal, or let me put it like this, if you want to have what I call straight gutters, one way to do that nicely, and perhaps or perhaps a variety would be to have an occasional gutter going down here. So let's say you want, if I can show cut and copy a little bit here just for fun here. Let's say I copy. And now first I'm going to hide these guys here, and I'm going to I'm copy row D now. Okay, so let's say we're just playing around a little bit here. Or maybe I could even take, we have a merged core here. Okay, let's take that instead. I'll draw onto that instead. If there is some. No, we don't. Okay, because I wanted to be straight gutter intersection. Okay, so we have an approximate straight gutter intersection on both this one and this one here. So they are almost equally wide. And of course all of these guys over here must be that too, as I said before. But now let's get some variety here then. Let's do something I've never done. And I'm going to cut and copy here, or copy and paste here. Let's just move everything down here, just as an experiment. And we have to actually select it. So like that, cut and copy, or copy and paste, sorry, copy and paste. And now let's go down 2.5 gutter widths, or let's go just a little longer and just do. And now we go to row C and do the same thing. I'm just doing this quickly here just to see what we can get, if we can get anything. Maybe I'm just hallucinating with my ideas here, if this could work or not. I didn't even try it before I started the video, so I'm not but you get the idea, I think, that we could apply the same rules here in the this direction if we wanted to have a slightly different flow, or maybe we needed this to be a little wider in order to if you have a tall spaceship, or you may have a crane, you have to, that's 1,000 meters high or something, or you have to sort of depict it in a particular way. So perhaps you could have it designed like that then, just to get a feel for it, if it could work. But then of course you get other questions with flow and like that. So but still, I think you might pull it off. But here perhaps there might be some additional rule that you can have 2.5 gutter widths, but not much more, because then the flow here, if this gets too small or too in terms of height, then the reading of this row here might be harmed, or it may feel less natural, because if this is too long, then perhaps you get the impression that these are connected in some way or something. So it might, well, maybe you can return to that in another video or two, but anyway, I thought I should mention it as some kind of idea for your own projects. Okay, so then I guess we're summing this up now. I have less, not much more to say, I think. And so the idea is then that the takeaway of this video is always try to use the 2.5 gutter width solution when you are combining the panels and you're designing the panel. So on the design stage, or in the sort of revision stage, if you have already made your layout but you want to change it in the last minute, and you can do so, and by using the 2.5 gutter width rule, then you can always get a pleasing sort of patchwork of panels. And if you cannot have that, then at least if for some reason 2.5 isn't doable, then the next best thing is either 2.0 or a 0 gutter width, namely straight gutter intersections. Or so you have to sort of at least, at the very, very least, try to avoid all these gutter intersections that are like 0.5 gutter widths and 1.0 and perhaps also 1.5. But 2.0 and 2.0 is on the limit, and 2.5 is very good. So then you would be in the safe area, and everything above that, of course, is very good as well. So I think that sums it up, and I'm hoping that you really enjoyed this video, and I'm hoping that you will have a really great day as well. See you in the next video.